Every computer program is made up of one or more of these following programming constructs. And so knowing what programming constructs are and being able to identify them, and really importantly knowing which ones you need to use to solve a problem, is so important when you go and do any sort of programming or you look at any sort of program as well. So we're going to cover the main three types of programming construct here. And we're going to start out with the basic one, so that every single computer program will have sequencing in it. And this is just the idea that after you've written a computer program, the computer takes that program, runs it from top to bottom in order. And I'm going to give you an example program of all these programming constructs as we're going along. And this one's fairly straightforward with sequencing. So let's have a look at 2 lines of code here. And sequencing really is just a simple idea that the first line of computer program that gets run is this top one here where it says print hello. So you'll see hello on screen. And the second line that gets run is the one below it. So my_num equals 6. It sets a value into a variable. That's the idea of sequencing, that we go from top to bottom normally, unless something affects the order, which are the other 2 programming constructs actually, which we're going to talk about now. So another one is selection. That is your second programming construct. And this is the idea that we can change what code is run based on a condition. And you'll get to see what I mean by condition in a moment, because the conditions are really important for both selection and iteration. So let's write a little bit of computer code for this. Almost all programming languages use if statements when you're dealing with selection. So let's write an example one here. So if my_num is greater than 5, print high, else print low. And what happens with an if statement or selection is this: the condition is evaluated. And that means we look to see if this here is my_num greater than 5, if that is either true or false. So we got my_num set to 6 here. So if my_num greater than 5, well, because my_num is 6, that is therefore true. And if that is true, if the condition is true, then the top part of the if statement is run here, so we'll get to print out high and we won't get low printed out. But if I change my computer code a little bit higher up here, so let's change this so no longer it says my_num equals 6, let's do, I don't know, my_num equals 3, then that would switch around, because if my_num greater than 5 now equals false. So because of that, the false part of the if statement is run, so that's anything after the else, and so I'll get the word low printed. So it's just the idea that we have a condition, and if that condition is true, one part of the code is run. If it's false, another part of the code is run. Okay, so there's sequencing and selection. And now we're going on to iteration. And this is the bit which can blow people's minds. But this is just a simple idea that we repeat code, and we can repeat code based on either a condition, just like with an if statement, or a set number of times. And that's called either condition controlled or count controlled. So I'm going to give you an example of condition controlled iteration now. We'll start off with that one. So let's have just a bit of sequencing. So my_num equals 0, and then after that I'm going to have a while loop, and the while loop is the bit which is iteration. Okay, so that's your iteration programming construct, or one of them anyway. So while, and then we're going to have a condition, my_num, let's do my_num is less than 2. Okay, so whilst my_num is less than 2, then we're going to run the computer code, and we're going to keep doing it until my_num is no longer less than 2. And so we'll have what? We'll just do something simple here. My_num equals my_num plus 1. Okay, so we're just going to add on 1 to my_num each time. And what we need to do is follow along what happens in this computer program and what order things happen in, because the loop makes the code repeat. This is the bit which people sometimes find confusing. So what I'm going to do is draw an arrow here on that side here, and we're going to have a look to see sort of how the program moves and changes. I'll add an extra line of code at the bottom here, just a print statement, so we can see when that is actually eventually run. And then we're going to keep track of what's in my_num. If you remember the idea, we have variables in boxes, so this would be an integer box, and that's going to start off with the number 0. Okay, so let's get going. First line of code that's run is my_num equals 0. So far, so good. Next line that gets run is this: whilst my_num is less than 2. Well, is my_num less than 2? Yes, it is, because it's 0. So we move on to the next line of code, which is here. My_num equals my_num plus 1. That means we're adding 1 onto my_num. So let's get rid of that 0 and put a 1 in there. And this is the bit which is really important. This is the bit which makes it iteration. We do not go on to a next line of code, which might be on down here. We go back to our while loop. Okay, we go back to our while loop here, and then we check again. We say while my_num is less than 2. So is my_num less than 2 yet? No, because is my_num less than 2 yet? Yes, it is. It's 1. So we go back to this line of code here. My_num equals my_num plus 1. Let's change that. So my_num now equals 2, and then we go back up again, and we're going to check here again. So whilst my_num is less than 2. It's no longer less than 2 because it equals 2. So what happens now is we exit that loop, and the next line of code, which could be run, which is down here, gets run, which is that bit where it says print finished. So that's an example of condition controlled iteration. There's another type of iteration. I won't go through the full example for it, but that's called count controlled iteration. So let me give you a quick example, and it will look something like this. Count controlled iteration. It will be 4, because 4 is the word that we use for count controlled iteration. For I equals 0 to 5, and then we'll have a bit of sequencing after that. So print. This will be printed out 5 times. And if you ran that code, what would happen is anything within the for loop, so this line here, in this case, would get run 5 times. So sequencing, the idea that we're running from top to bottom of the code. Selection, those if statements, so we choose what kind of code is going to be run based on the condition. And iteration, the idea that we're repeating or looping code based on either a condition, so condition controlled iteration, or a set number of times. That's count controlled iteration. They're your programming constructs. If you found that video useful, please hit the like button and hit subscribe to the channel. Keep learning and revising more computer science by clicking on the videos linked here.